My mother-in-law has a total of 10 grandchildren. Mine are her least favorite, and as long as the children were young and didn't understand it was tolerable, but now they suffer a lot and notice the favoritism, and visiting the in-laws has become an ordeal for my children, especially when the other cousins are there. Now I have decided to eliminate this anxiety from my children and forbid my in-laws to ever be in my children's lives again. Almost everyone on my husband's family, including my husband, are calling me an eye-hole, and many are saying that I am an arrogant and hateful woman, and that's why I never was a favorite of my mother-in-law. But see, this is where I disagree. It doesn't matter if she likes me or not. If I am the arrogant one, or she's the selfish, bitter kind, it shouldn't be taken out on the children, and here's an example of the train of thought that made me come to this conclusion. I have a sister and a brother, both married with kids. I hate my brother-in-law because he is an abusive ass, and I love my sister-in-law. I love all my siblings because they are my family and didn't choose their parents. In other words, my children are her grandchildren and her son's children, no matter who I am. Now she is calling my husband, crying every day about how I am forbidding her from seeing her grandchildren, which is beyond me, because why would she even care when she doesn't like them? Because I finally said something? My other reason is that I don't want my children to resent their cousins for being treated better, because it is both cousins' fault, either that adults aren't even pretending to be civil. My husband said that I have no right and he has the same amount of say to decide who meets his children. So I told him that fine. He could choose us or mommy and we could divorce, and I would make sure his mom to never see our children enforced legally, because what started all of this is one of my sister-in-laws sending me chat logs after chat logs of his mother spewing hatred about my children, especially my daughter because she looks like me. Am I the jerk? Can I forbid my husband's family to see our children, even with him believing we could fix this in a less dramatic way? His mother is very willing to apologize and talk, and she says that she loves our children very much. But for me, that ship has sailed and sunken. My daughter does not want to see anyone from that side of the family. Additional information from OP, giving an example of her children not being treated equally as their cousins in their father's family. OP, my children have never got any real gifts from their grandparents, not even on their birthdays. When my daughter turned 7, her cousins got bigger gifts. They also always forgot to buy them treats, etc. One time I came late to the party because of work, and my husband was out with his dad after dropping the children off. They were alone without me or my husband for about ½ an hour, and when I got there, earlier than she expected, she had all the grandchildren sitting on the dining table, and only my children sat there and watched while the rest had cake and chocolate milk. When she saw me, she started talking about how she forgot my children and started rummaging in the freezer for treats. I cried all night thinking about the look on my children's faces. My husband thought I was exaggerating. It was just snacks. I told him he would never understand if he thought it was about the food or the material things. Our marriage deteriorated ever since. Whenever he tried to apologize, I asked him if he understood my exaggeration, or is he just apologizing because I was hurt? He never understood. Commenter: so what has your husband done about this? Has he set down some rules for his mom? Is he upset about what his mom said about his own daughter? Has he told her that talking about his daughter that way is inappropriate? Or does he just want to believe his mom's crocodile tears just to take the path of least resistance? OP: he is absolutely not upset about what his mom said, because we shouldn't have read these chats, and people are free to express themselves when the chat is supposed to be private. It is only bad if she said this to our children. Except our children aren't dumb. They don't need to read the chat, they know how she feels about them. Commenter: what does your pussy of a husband have to say about all the obvious abuse she lobs at them? He's a failure of a parent if he thinks what she says to them is okay. OP: the only one he was angry about is a picture she taken of our youngest laying in the grass, and you can see their pet's gravestone behind his head, and she wrote, "Here lies the youngest son of the bitches like a retarded dog. Doesn't he look retarded? Who just falls asleep in this heat?" Commenter: can you give some specific examples of how she hates your children? Seems if she hated them, she'd welcome you saying she doesn't ever have to see them again. Do be aware that you will have no say in how much contact your in-laws have with the kids while your husband has his visitation time. Unless these chat logs actually include tangible threats of physical harm, the courts will not restrict who you husband and the kids spend time with during his custody time. You and your husband sound like you need to get some marriage counseling to get on the same page, or to help navigate co-parenting as divorced parents. OP: you would think that, wouldn't you? That she would be over the moon that she doesn't have to have them in her life. But my guess is that she enjoys the mistreatment. She loves showing obvious favoritism and see their reaction. Like when she calls them fat or my daughter a giraffe, or when she forgets to buy them gifts when everyone else gets one, or pushes them out of pictures with her other grandkids. Smelly, dirty, snotty, etc. Commenter: family therapist: let your husband hear from your children, and you with a third party. And maybe you can all figure this out together. Good luck. OP: I have been thinking about therapy for my daughter because she is 7 and understands very well what's happening, but maybe the whole family is a good idea. OP on if the family on her side is different than her husband's family. Do they dote on OP's children? OP, I am so sorry. Fortunately for my children, they have 2 doting grandparents, a grandaunt, and 1 doting great-grandmother. 2 doting actually I stand no chance when they're around. I don't believe in quantity, however. I'd rather have my children surrounded by fewer people who love them than many who actually hate them. OP on her children's ages, and if the husband have listened to their children about his parents. OP, F7, M5, and M4. The agreement is that we never see his family again. When the children are old enough, they decide if they want their grandparents in their lives or not. Or it will be divorce, and I will make sure everyone will see the hundreds of messages she sent about my children. I can't publish the pictures she taken of them to mock them, but I sure can use them in court. And all the evidence of her trying to teach my children to hate me. And all the witnesses who have seen/heard her call my children smelly and disgusting. Or fat, or call my daughter ostrich/giraffe. My daughter has tall neck like me, which makes her try to bow whenever her grandma is around, so she wouldn't be bullied. Making it very clear in my post that my children are hurting should be, and is for the majority that are commenting here, enough to make a judgment. I made it very clear that my children are hurting to a degree that I was worried they would grow up resenting the cousins. I don't need apologies. You fought so hard for a woman who is making small children hurting. Move on, lady. What does any details matter if the most important one, that my children are hurting now they are older and can sense the mistreatment, is included? Why do details matter if my daughter feels anxiety when she hears that we are visiting that side of the family, which I included in my post? Why do details matter if I wrote that I was worried that our children might grow resentful of their cousins, which I included in my post? Shouldn't explaining how my children are feeling right now be enough? Would I be able to force any adult here, especially the YTA team, to spend time with people who hate them? Why is it okay to force my children? Because they are just kids and can't say no? Update 1. Hi. So I got what I wanted in the end. My husband was reluctant to hear me out or the children. I told him, what's the point of even having a family if you already have a family? What's the point of trying to raise our children to have their own autonomy if we don't listen to them when they say no? He of course called me dramatic. We invited his older brother and wife for dinner. The brother brought up the issue and I was very honest about what I wanted and what the children wanted. The brother laughed it off as me always despising his mother, so I asked him if he read the chats between his wife, his sister, his mom, and his other sister-in-law, the one who ratted them out. And he at first denied it, then he said, yeah, I did. I asked him what he would have done if Ho's mother or mother-in-law wrote these things about his children, and he just say, she would never even dream of seeing them again, not even if hell froze over. So I asked, then why my children? He looked at me, then my husband, his brother, then he casually said, because I am a real man. But your husband has always been a pussy. I don't talk in balls and pussies per usual, just retelling what he told me. My husband was silent the whole time. I said, well, I don't have balls, but your mother will never see my children again, not even if hell freezes over. So tell that to your brother, or anyone for that matter. My husband took our daughter out for a dinner and movie, a tradition of theirs, and he probably talked to her about her grandparents. She told him they don't like her, and she feels sad about it. She made it very clear she doesn't want to talk to them. She told them she had grandparents, my folks, so that's enough. When he got home, he said that we don't need to visit again. We will not accept any gifts from them and that he can visit them alone. I said thank you. Additional information from OP to clarify the relationships in her husband's family. OP, they are 3 brothers and a sister. The rich one is the oldest brother. My husband is third. The one in this update is the oldest brother. The sister-in-law that ratted them out is the youngest son's wife. Sorry for the confusion. Relevant comments. Commenter. Good for sticking up for your kids. I'd lose quite a bit of respect for hubby though. OP. I have, TBH. Hopefully some therapy and I can get over that. Commenter. I'm sorry to say this, but you've still got a real problem. When you felt disrespected by his family, and when you expressed that your children were hurt by this, he wanted to change nothing. When he felt disrespected, he said it's time to make a change. Your husband is a nutless, selfish man boy. OP. I thought one problem at a time kind of arrangement. He is aware that we have problems, but both are willing to work together to solve them before we called it quits. Update 2. Hey everyone. It's been a few weeks since my last update, and a lot has happened, but in true chaotic fashion, nothing has truly resolved if you know what I mean. First off, my husband has been trying to play the role of the peacekeeper, which would be admirable if it wasn't so infuriating. He's now stuck in this weird limbo where he wants to be a good son, but also a good husband and father. Unfortunately, his idea of balancing these roles is to just not make any decisions at all. It's like he's taken up residence on the fence and built a cozy little house there. In the meantime, the in-law drama hasn't exactly simmered down. After our last dinner with his older brother and sister-in-law, the story of our family feud spread like wildfire through the entire family. I'm sure you're not surprised that it was the topic of conversation at every Sunday brunch, every casual coffee meetup, and every damn group chat that doesn't include me. I received a message from my husband's sister, let's call her Karen for obvious reasons, lecturing me about the importance of family and how I'm tearing everyone apart. Apparently, she's the self-appointed guardian of family unity now, which is funny considering she's the one who once got into a screaming match with her mom over a damn apple pie recipe. She made it clear that I'm no longer welcome at any family gatherings until I apologize. Yeah, sure, Karen. My husband, ever the optimist, thought this might be a good time to get everyone together and talk it out, but I'm not exactly in the mood for another round of let's gang up on the outsider. So I told him he's on his own for this one. He looked defeated, like a kid who just found out there's no Santa Claus, but honestly, I'm past caring about his disappointment. My focus is on our kids, and their mental health is my top priority. The idea of sitting in a room with those people while they pick apart everything I've done to protect my children makes my blood boil. Then came the incident that pretty much sealed the deal on where we're headed. My husband's mom decided to take matters into her own hands and showed up unannounced at our house. She must have thought it was a grand gesture or something, but to me, it was just plain disrespectful. She stood on our porch with crocodile tears, holding a bag of gifts for the grandchildren. Like that would suddenly erase all the years of mistreatment. I didn't let her in. Instead, I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and told her point blank that her time manipulating and hurting my children was over. She tried to argue, saying she was just misunderstood, and that she didn't mean to hurt anyone. But when I brought up the chat logs, the ones where she called my daughter a giraffe and made fun of my son, her face turned ashen. She stammered, but no apology came out. Not a single word of remorse. My husband was upstairs with the kids during all this, so he didn't see the confrontation. After she left, I told him what happened. He just sighed, like he was exhausted by the whole situation, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of anger at how passive he's been. He said nothing, no defense, no agreement, just a heavy, tired sigh. That was the moment I knew that this marriage was in serious trouble. We've started counseling, but I can already tell it's going to be an uphill battle. My husband is still in denial, thinking that somehow, someway, everyone will magically get along if we just give it time. I'm not holding my breath. As for my kids, they're doing better now that they're not being forced to see their grandparents. My daughter is in therapy, and she's opening up more about how the favoritism made her feel. It's heartbreaking to hear her talk about it, but I'm glad she's processing those feelings now rather than bottling them up. The real kicker? My husband's mom has started sending gifts through the mail. Every week, another package arrives cheap. Thoughtless trinkets that are clearly an attempt to win the kids over without facing the consequences of her actions. I've been returning them unopened, but it's like playing whack-a-mole. She's relentless. So, here we are, stuck in this bizarre, toxic cycle. I've made my stance clear, but my husband still can't bring himself to fully commit to protecting our children from his mother. I don't know how much longer I can wait for him to finally choose a side. Update 3. Hey everyone, after the last update, I thought I had some kind of grip on the situation. I had boundaries in place, the kids were starting to feel safer, and even though my marriage was shaky, I believed that with enough therapy and time, we could find a way to move forward. But as it turns out, when you build a wall, some people just get more creative about how to break it down. My husband's mother, let's just call her Queen Toxic, from now on decided that if she couldn't get to the kids through me, she'd try another route. A few days after I returned her latest attempt at bribing the kids with cheap trinkets, I got a call from my daughter's school. Apparently, grandparent had shown up unannounced during recess, asking to see her. They said it was her special grandma and that they just wanted to talk. Thank God the school has a strict policy about visitors and didn't let her in. But the thought of Queen Toxic lurking around my daughter's school, trying to ambush her like that, made my blood run cold. I went straight to the principal and had her put on a no-contact list. If she shows up again, they'll call the police. When I told my husband what happened, I expected him to be furious, to finally see that his mother had gone way too far. But instead, he looked at me with this bewildered expression and said, maybe she just wanted to apologize in person. Apologize? At a school? To a 7-year-old? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That was the moment I realized something had snapped in him. He was so deep in denial, so desperate to believe that his mother was anything but the monster she really was, that he couldn't see what was right in front of him. The next few days were a blur of arguments. I told him this was it, no more playing nice, no more excuses. If he couldn't stand up to his mother and protect our kids, then I would. I contacted a lawyer and started getting my ducks in a row, just in case. The night before our next counseling session, he came home late. He'd been drinking, not a lot, but enough that I could smell it on him. We started talking, or rather, I started talking, and he started spiraling. He kept saying that he couldn't choose between his wife and his mother, that it was like asking him to cut off his own arm. I told him that this wasn't about choosing between me and her, it was about choosing between his children's safety and his mother's manipulation. He didn't see it that way. He ended up sleeping on the couch, and I spent the night lying awake, wondering if our marriage was really worth saving. If this was the man I wanted raising my kids with me. The next day, during our counseling session, things came to a head. Our therapist asked him directly if he understood the gravity of the situation. He realized that his mother's actions were not just hurtful but damaging to our children's mental and emotional well-being. He sat there, staring at the floor, and then said the one thing I was dreading to hear. I don't think she means to hurt them. She just doesn't know how to show love the right way. That was it. The final straw. I felt this cold clarity wash over me, and I knew right then and there that there was no coming back from this. I told the therapist that I couldn't continue with the session, stood up, and walked out. When I got home, I packed a bag for the kids and myself. I left a note for my husband, telling him that we needed space and that I was taking the kids to my parents' house for a while. I also told him that I would be moving forward with the legal separation if he couldn't commit to keeping his mother away from our children permanently. We've been at my parents' house for about a week now, and the kids are adjusting surprisingly well. They're happy, surrounded by people who genuinely love and care for them. My daughter's anxiety has lessened, and my boys are just thrilled to be playing in their grandparents' big backyard every day. As for my husband, he's been texting and calling nonstop, but I've kept my responses short and to the point. He's begging me to come home, saying we can work things out, that he'll keep his mother away for good this time. But I've heard it all before, and my patience has run out. I haven't filed for divorce yet, but it's on the table. I'm meeting with my lawyer again this week to discuss my options. It's not what I wanted, not what I ever imagined when we first got married, but I can't let my children be dragged through this toxic mess any longer.